بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلي اللهم وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. قال الله العظيم في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولا تطع كل حلاف مهين هماز مشاء بنميم. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. One of the many sins of the tongue, and the ulama of Akhlaq have listed perhaps 20 to 30 or more of the vices that this small piece of flesh inside our mouths can commit, is the bringing about of disunity and disarray and discord with regards to the relationships between people. And this is referred to as al-namima. Namima in Arabic refers to the act whereby an individual attempts to inform another of what was said about them, or what was mentioned, or what was somehow insinuated, normally in a secretive way. Either it's written or mentioned verbally, which normally brings about undesirable implications and bad consequences in society. And there is no translation for the word or the act of namima in English as far as I'm aware, but the closest is tale-telling, as some have translated it, or tale-bearing, as some of the mufassirin of the Holy Quran have referred to it. But in Arabic, if you go to, for example, classical texts like the Al-Mufradat for the author Al-Raghib, he talks about namima is a very quiet voice and sound which comes about when two things strike each other, or two things come about with each other. And here it is, of course, the origin of the word is in that way, but when you apply it to the practice, it's normally secretive, it's normally quiet. So when we have scenarios or situations where people are sitting there and talking with each other, and they often say it in a secretive manner, that look, shall I tell you what this person said about you, or I heard what that individual referred to you about, or did you see what this person did, for example, not just what they said, but what they actually did. And the intention behind it is to somehow either create discord between the people, but it sometimes could also be for the purpose of chatter, or for the simple leisurely purpose of conversation. Yes, that's not always necessarily resulting in creating discord, but the key thing is somehow there must be an ill intention behind it, or a lack of consideration for the consequences of it. Now, the Quran in Surah Al-Qalam in verses 10 to 11 warns against this practice categorically. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the Holy Prophet, وَلَا تُطِعْ كُلَّ حَلَّافٍ مَهِينٍ. Do not obey the individual who walks around, takes swearing by God lightly, so has no weight in terms of his truthfulness, but also hammazin masha'in binamim. So this hammaz and humaza is the whispering and the mentioning and the saying of things that has been kept secret from an individual, and bringing it to their attention for that intention of maybe creating problems between people. And we find waylun likulli humazatin lumaza in the Holy Quran. Allah warns severely against those individuals who seek to do this in society. And truly today we have more and more examples of this happening with the availability and the ease of passing information from the other. So back in the time, it was only when you see someone, you could say, do you know what? I shouldn't really be saying this, but I heard this person say that your prayers were prayed really quickly, and I can't believe that you come to the mosque. Or had someone else say that, I think you've wasted your life, you should have done this and that. These kind of things can now be forwarded and communicated in a much easier way, which makes us all much more susceptible. But if you look at Quranic teachings in regarding to namima, as well as, of course, the teachings of the Ahl al-Bayt, it's certainly quite severe, or the emphasis on the punishment of it and the severity of it is clear. The Prophet of Islam, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, and just reflect what the Holy Prophet here and the Imams are saying about people who seek to do this and continuously practice it. The Prophet said to the people around him, it is mentioned in Al-Bihar, volume 72, أَلَا أُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِشِرَارِكُمْ, shall I not tell you of the worst of the people? And the response said, Bala ya Rasulullah. Okay, who are they? The response was from the Prophet, Al-Mashsha'una bin Namima, those who walk around spreading and practicing namima. They're the worst of the people. Amir al-Mu'mineen, peace be upon him, says, An-namimatu jisru shar. Namima is the bridge that takes you towards evil. We have Amir al-Mu'mineen in I'lal al-Shara'i' reportedly saying, Adhabul qabri yakunu minan namima. That namima, seeding and planting discord between believers by narrating and by mentioning things, is one of the main reasons for the punishment in the grave. The adhabul qabr, the fishar qabr, as they say. The Prophet, peace be upon him, and his progeny in a narration says, Ya Aba Dhar, addressing the famous companion Abu Dhar, Sahibun namima la yastarihu min adhabillahi fil akhirah. That the person who practices namima will not have respite from the punishment of God in Jahannam. Not have respite. There's a narration that once Musa and the community of Bani Israel went through a period of drought. And Musa alayhi salam asked Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, "O Allah, send rain upon us. We are desperately looking for rain." Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala revealed to Musa, "O Musa, there is amongst you some people who are practicing namima. That stops the rizq from coming." Yes? Musa said to God, notice this. He said, "O Allah, tell me who they are so that I can go and find them." Allah said, "Oh Musa, I am saying they're doing namima and you want me to do namima too? You want to, I'm saying that you want me to say, oh, this person is that and this person is doing that to you? Yes, you want me to do it?" And so it gives us an idea about how dangerous this particular practice is. Now, of course, the ethos of Islamic teachings and Islamic akhlaq, Quranic akhlaq, is peace and harmony. It's spreading love and understanding between members of society, members of the community. And if you look at these aspects, these vices, such as ghiba, such as namima, such as buhtan, slander, you see the severity of the punishment just because of what it will result in society. The outcome of it, as we see families breaking down a relationship, marital setups ending, God forbid, and so on and so forth, due to this gossip and the chatting that goes around. And did you hear this person this? Oh, you know what? I don't want to judge them, but I saw them doing this. Well, you've already judged them by mentioning an element. You know, one brother in Australia said there was a real story where somebody saw a brother enter into a pub. So he said sadly, you know, sometimes we come to majalis, we go to religious programs, we get thawab and barakah, and the malaika descend and write thawab for those who attend, those who learn and apply to their lives. But as soon as the majlis ends, we have these small sessions of dissecting the lives of others. Did you hear about this person, and did you hear about that person? And apparently in this incident, this person spread this news to others and said, well, you know what, I don't know what he was doing, but obviously what do you do when you go into a pub, you know? And it spread in the community to the extent that he was so embarrassed that he wanted to save his face. He came out and said, and he requested from the mosque management to speak in front of the community and said to them, I would like to clarify that I had my car was broken down, I had no phone, and there was nowhere else that was open. I needed to make an emergency call, and these are their evidence. And he had to speak to people, and everyone came. But the destruction that, you know, people talking, and how it spread like wildfire, as it would do sometimes in this day and age, even more than before. It's so easy for this news to spread. Did you hear about this person and what they did, and so on and so forth, especially sometimes on social media publicly. The namima, what it does is it fuels hatred, and it really weakens the bond of love and relationship and strong affinity that the believers, that the Quran wants us to develop. We have an interesting story that mentioned in the books of narrations, that one day, back in the time when there was slavery, there was a man who came to purchase a slave from the market. And when he asked about this slave, he was told the slave is good, except that he's known to practice namima, tale telling, and you know, he does that. So there's that defect, so to speak, in him. He said, you know, he's a slave at the end of the day. I mean, I don't want him to be, you know, a community leader or someone like that. I'll just take him. So he bought him. When he bought him home, the slave went to this owner's wife and said to her that your husband doesn't like you. He has association or liking of another woman. And, you know, I think this is black magic, you know, classic black magic, throw it at everything. So he said, I think it's black magic. I think I can help you. So she was obviously worried. I think I can help you. How? He says to her, if you can get me part of his hair, I will be able to read something on it and the black magic will go. So she says, how can I do that? Well, volunteer one day to shave his beard or help him trim his beard with a kind of with a razor, and get some hair for me, and I'm able to help you. He then went to the husband and said, your wife is planning to kill you. Be careful. If she comes with a razor, allow her to come close, because then you don't know if she's... But the moment she's about to strike, then know that she's about to slit your throat. So the husband waited and waited. She came, a wife came, and then what did he do? Anger, he kind of, I don't know, hit her, pushed her, she died. And later the family of the wife came, sought some kind of punishment, and they killed the husband too. So the slave, who was a nammam, who was a person spreading namima, resulted what? In 2 people being killed. This is the severity of it and what it could actually do in society, in community. Now, the question that people have is, why does it happen? Why do we have individuals who do this, who go around telling people about others, who have nothing else better to do? And sometimes it's not that it's their profession or there's their job, it just happens in the conversation. And we have to be careful that it's not disguised with Islamic, so to speak, guidelines. You know, sometimes shaitan comes to us through Islamically acceptable means and misleads us through that way. So for example, you're having a conversation with somebody and you say, you know what, I pray for that person. Honestly, I want to pray for him. You know, the stuff he says, it's nonsense. But I pray for him, inshallah, Allah forgives him. Notice, it's namima, but you've done it under the disguise of praying for him. So you think it's okay because you've made dua, but you've messaged and you've said something to that individual about that person. Yes, it could be ghiba, but it also could be namima in that they had mentioned something, or they had heard something, or they talked about something which that person doesn't know about. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about that person. but rather just relating that is problematic. So the reasons could be envy, hasad, that we see that we may not have what others have, so we talk about them in such a way. We cannot bear the success of others, perhaps, that others we feel are more successful than us. It is mentioned, the ulama say, it's with regards to the love of dunya, the love of wealth, the love of status, positions. These all push people towards doing and practicing namima. Suffering with hypocrisy, nifaq. And the hadith of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, alamatun nifaq al-hathu ala namimah in al-bihar. One of the signs of hypocrites is that they continuously practice namima in their lives. So finally, what needs to be done if A, God forbid, we are of those people, and B, if we come across those people? So there's two separate elements. First of all, if we have developed a habit, so to speak, then we remind ourselves through accountability, through reflection about the punishment, about the distancing away from God's mercy and the blessings, about what the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam have said about namima and what it could result. And at the same time, not to take lightly what we say, because any statement you and I utter will be held accountable on the Day of Judgment. So to have some kind of supervision on the words and the expressions and the conversations that we may necessarily have with each other and with others too. And by the way, there isn't any indication in Islamic teachings that it's only reference to Muslims, this. So it's about creating discord between any individuals, as opposed to ghiba, as we discussed. We said in backbiting, there is specifically in the Quran, it's mentioned, أَيَحِبُّ أَحَدُكُمْ أَن يَأْكُلَ لَحْمَ أَخِيهِ. But we also said that it's not something that should be done when it comes to non-Muslims, because it develops in the human being the tendency to practice ghiba, which then becomes easy to do for Muslims too, or mu'mineen too. And likewise, we gave examples of the Ahlul Bayt, how they dislike this being mentioned about non-believers. But here in namima, it is across the board in terms of the relationships that people have in a community or a society. If you and I come across individuals who have committed or are before us trying to be of the namameen, of the ones who commit namima, first thing is, we should never believe them. Should never believe him or her. If they've come and said, shall I tell you this person has said this about you? Do not immediately react and say, how dare they? Watch what I will do. Or let me see what they will. Or the idea in their minds that goes to people, revenge, I can't believe it. We immediately somehow take what's being said, because the narration from the Ahlul Bayt say, do not trust an individual who spreads these type of conversations. Now, there is an exception. Ash-Shahid al-Thani, one of our great ulama, in his works, he talks about the exceptions with regards to preventing a sin or saving a life. That's different. Yes, as some exceptions. But of course, we can make those distinctions and we know where to draw the line. But certainly, the Quran tells us, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, in ja'akum fasiqun binaba'in fatabayyanu. Oh, you who believe, if a wretched individual, as a fasiq, comes to you with news, make sure you ascertain the truthfulness of it, lest you become regretful and remorseful. It's so much easier to destroy reputations than to correct it. Because you can't. If the idea and reputation goes and spreads around, sometimes back in the time, today maybe it could be easier to rectify too with the media and the social interactions that people have, as well as social media. But back in the time, if there was a rumor that was spread, or somebody said, oh, this person doesn't believe, as a scholar, for example, in the concept of raj'ah, for example. And then it spreads. Oh, can you believe this? Today it happens also with speakers, with scholars, with community leaders. Yes, they may have heard something and they've understood it in their own way, and they go to people, can you believe what that Maulana said? I can't believe it. What did he say? He said this and this. Really? How? Yes, yes, I heard it in my own. Do you see? But maybe that's your understanding. Maybe that's how you've managed to maybe grasp the message. Yeah? So we have to be very, very careful in that particular regard, not to destroy reputation. Secondly, it is our responsibility to inform them that it's wrong and to stop them, because if we don't, then we're not practicing prohibiting the vice or prohibiting the evil. And thirdly, we make sure that we don't do what they've done, and that is we don't go and tell someone else about what they've told us. So we don't keep this cycle going, but we stop the cycle by limiting and the objection to what is being said in order to fulfill our duties and our responsibilities, inshallah ta'ala. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi at-tahirin.